Done. All right. Amazing. Annie, hi, how are
Hello.
you? Thank you so much for making time
Great.
to chat to me today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No, I thought it was really cool. I love your background. So people may be listening to the audio version, but behind you, Annie, can you describe the scene that I'm seeing here? There's like 1,000. Are they actual records or are they just images of records on the behind you?
So they are, what are these actually? I'm in a green room because I'm on tour right now. They're images of records. I think they're album covers is what they are. So I'm on tour with my band, and so everybody's out there loading in and sound checking right now. So I'm in the green room and it's pretty cool.
Can you talk a little bit about that? That's so cool. What kind of music do you play? Sorry, I should probably know that. What type of music do you play?
No, that's okay.
What's your
I
role?
have a band. It's my own band, so it's all original music and it's called Trashy Annie. And so I write the music. It's rock and roll. I got just a little bit of southern rock in some of it. I live in Texas, and so there's a little bit of country twang in some of the stuff, but it's got a little metal, little hip hop. I got a kind of a mixtape of of music if you were to listen to an album down, there's a little of this, a little of that, but basically all based in rock and roll.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so cool. And coincidentally, your elimination happens around the same time as Taylor's new album, Life of a Showgirl, and you are living the life of a showgirl as we speak, a rock showgirl, which is so cool. Uh, it's so interesting. The whole Survivor concept. Why come play Survivor? Obviously, you've got a really cool life. I feel like people do Survivor for a multitude of reasons. Usually, they're seeking something extraordinary. But it seems like you live like a pretty cool life as it is.
I have an awesome life. I'm a touring musician. I have a really cool company back in Austin that I built from scratch 13 years ago. So I've got a lot of really cool stuff going on. But I've done a lot of physical challenges in my life. I've done Ironmans, I've climbed mountains, I've done 72-hour adventure races in the woods by myself. So I've done a lot of physical stuff. I've never really challenged myself in a social aspect. I've always been kind of and I think this played into why I didn't do all that well on Survivor, because I've always been kind of a lone wolf who just, does things independently. And I didn't really I didn't know how I would do in a social environment. And so that was part of the reason I wanted to go on Survivor, because I've always loved the show. I've watched it since it came out. But I think the challenges of being in a group of strangers and trying to figure out the social dynamics when I'm used to being a CEO and a boss and just doing things myself, I knew it was going to be a challenge for me. And as it proved, it was more of a challenge than I was ready for, because here I
Yeah,
sit.
look, it's such a hard one. It's such a conundrum as well when you when you play Survivor. And firstly, I love all those things as well. That's so cool that you get to do and have done all of those amazing adventures. And I think it does parlay well into Survivor. But one of the things I struggle with, like modern Survivor, is the small tribes. It's really hard. And I say this with respect, because I one of my comments yesterday watching the show was like, "Damn, Annie is so fit." But my comment is that you're a generation removed from like this younger set of cast as well, and it did seem like that was like harder. Like it's harder when you're in a small tribe to find, quotation marks, your people. How did you find that challenging when you get out there and there's, five other people and you're like a little bit of the odd one out?
100%. One, I'm used to being the odd one out in life, so I wasn't really that worried about it. So it's okay. I'm comfortable being the odd one out.
Yeah.
However, you're exactly right. I think you touched on two things that are interesting to me. One of them is the age issue, because the next closest person in age to me on my tribe was 10 or 11 years younger than me. And
Yeah.
then most of them were 20 years or more younger than me. And you you grow up differently when you come from different generations that are that far apart from each other. These guys don't know what it was like before the internet or any of these things, and so it's just kind of a weird thing, a weird gap to try to bridge with a bunch of strangers. And so I think one of my beefs with Survivor, frankly, is that they will put a lot of young people together on a tribe, but when's the last time, except for millennials versus Gen X, have they put older people on a tribe together? I mean, you
Yeah.
never see multiple people over 40 or 45 years old on the same tribe. You just don't see it. Certainly not three or four of them. And
Yeah.
then my other beef with the way that they're doing things nowadays, that I just don't prefer from a fan perspective, and also really don't from a player perspective either, is the three tribe format. I wish they would go back to two tribes. I think it's really easy to kind of end up with this disaster tribe kind of situation when there's only six people on a tribe. I mean, you lose, that maroon challenge, and it is knives out from go. And then if you can't win fire as a small tribe, you just basically go to zero, because it's really, really hard to come back from that when you don't have food in your belly and you've only got five other people to try to connect with. It's a tough deal with the three tribes. I'd prefer to see them go back to two. I think it creates some slightly more interesting gameplay.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree, and I appreciate that as well. And likewise, I am in my late 30s, so I watched Survivor from my teen years up. And it's interesting because like there are people on the cast who like are born after the show it was even created and come out. So I feel you for that as well, Annie. And it's like it I think one of the big things that I'd hope when we talk about, diversity and inclusion. Inclusion means, I think, age inclusion as well. And I do feel you're right that the show has skewed younger for whatever reason. And I don't think it's to the benefit, because I think when you look at the best players that we talk about today, we've seen the renaissance of like Parvati on a global scale, and we've seen Suri
Yep.
in multiple formats and shows through the world. We see these players come and they're not they're not 25, they're in their 40s, late 50, like in 50s as well. Like it's a different demographic, so I completely agree. I think it adds more depth to the player as well and brings more to the show generally.
I agree. And I think that there are a lot of people that are my age that are watching the show and they want to see somebody like them. And
Yeah,
when I looked at some of the data because I was actually kind of curious how many women over 45 have ever even been cast on Survivor. And it's a pretty low number. I think it's like 12, maybe with me 13. And the large majority of them are voted out before the merge
yeah,
because
yeah,
we tend to be sort of discounted. And I think that that's hard. And I came in really, I'm a strong human being. I think my edit made me look a little weak and frankly gave me a little bit of the old lady edit. And that was kind of a bummer for me because I know myself and I know what I've done. And I can run circles around so many 25-year-olds. I just can. And I worked really hard out there. I spent the entire first day building the shelter for everybody and just trying to be a contributing member of this tribe physically. And I think I was. And I don't think the edit really showed that. It was frustrating because I do think that there's, like I say, there's a lot of 40, 50-year-old women out there that probably would look at this show and say, I don't know if I could do that. And I wanted to show them that they can. And unfortunately, I don't think the edit really reflects it very well. So, yeah, I would like to see some older players. I would like to see more older players.
talk to me about Jake a little bit as well. Obviously, the I commented last week with Nicole. I feel like the shoe thing's really weird. I don't quite get the whole like picking up a shoe and moving it around. He was a target for you, really from
Yeah.
the Nicole situation up until that challenge where it shifted. But why Jake? What was the purpose around coalescing other people against him?
Two parts to that. One, I knew, and I was playing the long game. I think you have to play the short game and just try to get to tomorrow. And I do get that. But I think you also want to set yourself up. It's like chess. You got to think about what are your six moves ahead. Because if you get there, if you get to the merge, do you want to have somebody who's gigantic that you don't really think you can trust, who's going to beat everybody and probably not protect you? Probably not. And so my thought was probably try to get him out before we get to that point. But more importantly, we needed to, and I still stand by this. I wish my tribe would have listened to me because I don't know how it's going to play out, but I think it's going to come back to bite them at some point. We needed to split up Jake and Sophie. I think the two of them are a tight knit situation. I didn't know that they were tight until I woke up in the middle of the night one night, was crawling around on the sand because I saw the two of them sitting there real close to each other, just having a real intimate conversation for a long time. And I thought, ooh, this isn't good. These two are working together in a way that I didn't really know. And so I think that splitting the two of them up was my first order of business. And then when that challenge was so abysmally bad and Sophie's performance was, the weakest of our, she'll be the first to tell you, she was
Yeah,
not strong on that challenge. And we
yeah,
were 7 or 8 minutes ahead. And then when they lost the puzzle too, I was like, oh man, we have to vote her off because I was just trying to physically make the tribe a little stronger. And so it was funny that in tribal, she was talking about we need to make the tribe stronger. Well, I didn't make the tribe stronger to keep her around, but I think from a social game perspective, it made her game stronger for sure. So
yeah.
that's where we were with that.
Yeah, it's a real interesting one. The flip, and you answered my second question, so thank you for that. With the Sophie of it all, and it's a tricky one when you're then switching over the relationships that you do have. Alex seems someone that you're really close with, and like you can feel that when you leave. He
Yeah.
feels contrition around having to vote you out. He didn't
Yes.
feel like he wanted to, but he did. What was that
Yeah.
relationship like? Because obviously there's more to it than what we saw.
There was more to it. I found him on day one. I thought he was going to be my guy. My strategy going into it was find a number one, then do not talk to that person at all, if possible. Don't a secret number one. And I thought we had that. I thought we actually had that. And so our plans were to, okay, Alex, you go off and find yourself kind of a fake number one, but Jake clearly wanted to work with him, so that was easy. And then
Yeah,
I needed to go try to find somebody. I tried to kind of work with Sophie a little bit because she'd expressed some interest, but I also knew that she was working with other people. And I was like, well, that's probably not a real relationship. But I did the best I could with it. But I still really appreciated Alex. And I still think he probably, I don't think what he was telling me was a bunch of bull. I think he actually had to do that. I think he had to vote me out for his game. I don't fault him. I think that was his only move because had he voted with me against Sophie, it would have been 3-2. And then the jig would have been up anyway. And even if he would have played his idol for me, we would have been on the bottom for the next vote because Jake would have been pissed that we voted out Sophie. And then he would have come after Alex, who was supposedly working with him. So it would have created a whole mess if Alex would have sided with me. And unless he played his idol, I wouldn't have made it out of there anyway. And then the vote would have come for him next. So I think he did what he had to do. And he even said that to me when I hugged him at the end. He said I had no choice. And I agree with him. I don't think he had a choice. And especially watching it all back. And now I understand even more about what was going on.
yeah, I
So it
think
was the right move for him.
I agree with you, and I think it's really interesting when you get the more rounded picture when you see the other stuff that's happening around you. It's still an edited show, but you get to see, I guess, like the stories that are happening
Yeah.
elsewhere around it. And that brings me
Yeah.
to when we're seeing the scramble for the idol that Alex finds as well. Where are you in this moment? Because I feel like everyone slowly finds themselves in this area, and we don't have a time wise. But do you have any concept of where you were in that moment?
I was back at camp and I can't remember. I really can't remember why I was back at camp that time. There was a lot of editing of me sort of wandering around by myself, and that it bugs me a little bit because there's a lot of criticism about me being off in the woods by myself all the time and isolating myself and saying that this is what I was, doing and that's, Survivor 101 will tell you never wander off from your tribe by yourself. But there were two things going on. And one of them was that, like I said, I spent day one just building the shelter. So I wasn't looking for idols. I really wasn't. You always have your eyes open. But I took one look at that island and I thought, I am never going to find an idol. Everything looks like a leaf. Everything is brown. I was like, I'm going to spend all day looking for nothing. So let me just make a shelter. And, there's an idol, cool, but let me just do that because I can contribute to helping my tribe that way. So the first day I was wandering around because I was trying to find bamboo and we didn't have a machete. So I'm trying to find stuff that we can use for the roof and all that. So while I'm doing that, apparently my tribe is sort of plotting against me, but it's okay. So I'm doing that. And then later on, what was happening was when we decided that the vote was going to be on Nicole, that first vote, the five of us said, okay, we're going to make Annie the decoy. I even said, make me the decoy because I knew I wasn't going to go home that night. I said, just make her feel comfortable, like I'm going home. Why don't
Yeah.
we send me kind of isolate me a little bit and that'll further that storyline because we didn't want her to play the shot in the dark. So all of that sort of contributed to me being by myself more than it wasn't as much as it looked like it was on the edit, but it definitely was more than the rest of the tribe. So they definitely bonded by having more time together. When they found the idol, I don't know. I can't remember. I think Alex had told me that we were going to vote Sophie. Alex and Jake around the water well had said, okay, we're on board. She was bad in the challenge today. How can we not vote her off? So I thought we were good. And so part of it was not having me with that group so that Sophie would sort of feel comfortable in my mind. But what I think they were really doing was doing the same thing to me that we had done to Nicole earlier. Like, oh, Annie's comfortable. She's off at camp. She thinks we're voting Sophie, but don't worry, we're voting her. So I think that's probably what happened and why I was back there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the detail. Like, it's super cool to
Yeah.
hear the stuff that we don't get to see. I am conscious of
Yeah.
time. We are at the time limit.
Sure.
I really like to end these chats by talking about gratitude. Gratitude is such a big thing in my life. And I'll merge another question I had as well, which was around the people at home and what they're watching and what they're saying. The audience is saying about you. What do you want the audience to say about Annie? What do you want the memory to be of your experience in game?
You know, so there's sort of this lead up stuff before the show aired when they announced the cast and the comments, you're supposed to never read the comments,
Yeah,
right?
we
But
always read the comments, Annie.
sometimes you run through the comments and because everybody reads the comments. And it's all about what a freak, what a whack job. Who's this 50-year-old that dresses like she's 20 with purple hair and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I am very comfortable in my own skin, and I want other people to be comfortable in their own skin. So if anybody can watch this show and say that girl is unapologetically herself, and if she can do it, so can I, my job is done. This I don't do this stuff. I don't even do the band stuff for me. I do it because I want to inspire other people to be okay with themselves no matter what anybody else has to say about it. So there's all this criticism of me or my gameplay or how I look or how I dress or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry we didn't leave that out, but honestly. So I just hope I will leave you with this last thing. I got this. This is the reason I did this show. And I'll tell you in one little snippet why. I got this picture today from a fan who watches the show, and their family has this little, Survivor Fantasy League or whatever, and their little 5-year-old Aurora picked me as her number one draft pick because she loved me. And they said she was devastated when you got voted out last night. And she's this little 5-year-old nugget. And so they sent me a picture of her holding this sign that's all kind of misspelled and 5-year-old writing with a little picture of me with pink pigtails. And it says, Annie, you're the best. And they said she is now empowered by you, to be herself and to stand up for people who want to be themselves. And that to me, it just gives me goosebumps. It made me cry. And I don't ever cry. And I just felt like this is why we do this sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what I want people to remember.
Absolutely love that. That's so cool. And that's what this show does. Like it brings families
Yeah.
together. It creates these,
Yeah.
yeah, like yeah, you don't know the significance that you actually hold, even though you're on a show for a couple episodes. Like it does actually hold significance to lots of people. So if you make an
Yeah.
impact on one person,
Yep.
that's what matters. It's huge.
Job well done, in my
Amazing, Annie.
opinion. Yes.
Thank you for such a great chat. I really appreciate your honesty throughout. Best of luck watching the rest of the season, and best luck on the tour. How cool! Where are you
It's
now? Where are you
so
going to?
cool.
Yeah,
Gosh, where are we now? We're in Cleveland right now, and then
yeah.
we head to Chicago, and then we're gonna be playing a bunch of watch parties we just played one in Boston, and it was so much fun. We got to play, and then we did a big watch party with Bryson Wendell, and so we're gonna do a bunch of that this season. So I'll hopefully get to see a lot of fans from this season out there in the world.
Amazing. Love that. Thanks, Annie. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much.